Okay, let's bring everyone up to speed. Moody's vice president in charge of infrastructure says Nigeria's recent or latest $33 billion, $3 billion loan from the World Bank to power the country's electricity sector in the area of transmission is a plus for the country, but says that the country will have to face some critical issues to be resolved, which includes costs reflective tariff, good governance framework within the power sector, as well as issues around diversifying into renewable energy. That's one of the latest comments coming through as Nigeria secured fresh $3 billion, which will come in 4 tranches effective April next year, $750 million according to Finance, Budget and National Planning Chief Zainab Ahmed. Meantime, a team of Ghanaian officials have visited Nigeria over the last few days, and they've secured a deal with the Nigerian government to set up 2 independent joint teams, including trade and security, to go down across the land borders and reassess the situation, as well as reappraise the total land border closure by Nigeria a few weeks ago, which of course brings, if you roll that back all the way to the middle of August when Nigeria did the initial partial closure. Ghanaian businessman who spoke on Joy TV Ghana late yesterday says the authorities in Ghana continue this diplomatic engagement with Nigeria as far as the land border closure is concerned, expressing concerns about how this land border closure is impacting businesses across the West African sub-region, in particular Ghana, where trucks and trucks of goods are unable to make their way into Nigeria and vice versa. And that's the latest this morning on that. The joint team will produce a report to be reviewed by both Nigeria and the Ghanaian authorities. Let's check in with today's trading day, shall we? Temple Ashaju is back on the show from the stock exchange, where he's domiciled most of the day, by the way, anyway. Temple, from the trading floor. So let's get through. What are we seeing early today, in these early hours of the trading day, as far as the earnings were, and if investors are reacting more vigorously to those numbers that we got yesterday? Sweet story from UBA, not so sweet, as it were, from FBN Holdings.
Bittersweet. Sure, Bosun. And added to that flavor right now is that of Zenith Bank, which just trickled into the market. We're seeing very positive numbers around Zenith Bank, Q3 2019, and of course, cumulative numbers for the 9 months ended September 2019, all coming into the market. 491 billion naira was what is declared in gross earnings, and if you look at the bottom line, the profit after tax is 150 billion naira plus, compared to 144 billion naira for the same period last year. Profit before tax all looks positive, 176 billion compared to 167 billion naira. So that's a number that just came in. A few impairment charges, by the glance through the numbers that we've just checked, because it just came in less than 5 minutes ago. So that's what investors are now trying to quickly react to. But before now, in any trades, the moment the market opened, we've seen investors continuing to push their interest on UBA. It's moved up. That's about the only stock that has actually changed for the positive, in terms of share price as of this morning. But I'm sure that with what Zenith Bank has just posted now, we'll continue to see some positive reaction to Zenith Bank. Don't forget, it was a company that actually experienced some cross-dealing yesterday alongside Grantee Trust Bank, whose numbers was the first of all the banks and of course all the companies for the 9-month period to come into the market this period, Bosun.
Yes, Tempo, sometimes you get a little bit very dizzy when you get into the earnings season, in particular the banks. This earnings comes in dozens of pages, and you keep chasing the numbers. And when it starts the numbers start coming in, like you had overnight rainfall today in Lagos. It's really rained heavily overnight. So you start keep chasing one earnings after the other. Before you finish talking about one, then the next one is coming through. Because yesterday, when we saw more than 300 million shares of Zenith Bank traded and accounting for about 90% of the total Naira value, yesterday was about 7 billion Naira. Trading in Zenith Bank shares was about 6.2, 6.3 billion Naira out of that. And I said, something is going to fall through within the next 24 hours. Then I quickly checked through and found out that Zenith had actually paid an interim dividend. So investors who had their ears to the ground were waiting for today's announcement. And as you can guess, it's all about it. But again, as you talk about UBA, that's the stock now up about 1% because those numbers from UBA actually met some expectations yesterday, reporting top line, gross earnings, 14.2% growth. Profit before tax, 24%. That's positive. Profit after tax, 32.2%. That's one of the biggest good news the market have seen from UBA, and I'm sure today they'll be pouring over Zenith Bank, one of the big boys on Broad Street.
You're right, boss. And folks, you always say it, buy on the rumors, sell on the news. Actually, I mean, that's what probably has happened. That doesn't amount to insider trading a lot of time. It's just being smart. It's just being calculative. It's been, looking at the numbers and the performance of these banks, within the period. If you do your check, your valuation, and check out how they've performed within that period, then you can positively tell sometimes if you should actually put more money on it. Don't forget again, these companies have actually experienced some hard times in recent times. So what will possibly just happen is you see some investors trying to dilute funds to see how they can now see some kind of profit eventually. Again, we're just 2 months to the end of the year. A lot of time there's this typical Yuletide rally that comes with a lot of these banks and a lot of the conglomerates and the consumer goods companies. So this season you will continue to see a lot of investors buying into a lot of these stocks, whether they do good, whether they post good performance, impressive numbers or not. This is the kind of sentiment that you continue to see. Folks that have actually saved, whether as retail investors from the beginning of the year through to this period, they save onto this period and then they just put it in stock. So weeks to Christmas, weeks to the new year, or days to new year, days to Christmas, you see these guys offloading in the markets with some good profit that period, Bosun.
Yes, Temple, part of what, thank you, Temple, part of what investors will be looking at again, as good as the headline numbers look like for Zenith Bank, the earnings per share is what I'm just looking at right now, and that is not looking good. As I speak, the earnings per share for Zenith Bank, 9 months is reading 116 kobo per share for this 9 months. 9 months of 2018 was 386 kobo. That's much lower. The devil is always in the details. Thank you, Temple. Have a great day. Let's spend the last 1 minute of the show to talk to Chioma Udu, who is a fixed income dealer at GT Bank, as far as the fixed income is concerned. And we're just trying to get the opening calls for today on our debt market. Chioma, would you do that for us very quickly, please?
Yes, I will. Good morning, Boston.
Yes.
Today, the highlights of today is the bond auction, which we have today. 150 billion is on offer against street tenors, as against the 200 billion maturing today. Over 200 billion is maturing today. We expect that there's going to be a lot of interest in that space. And then we expect that the rates are going to come out at current market rates, which is about 14.5.
So also in terms of liquidity and what to expect tomorrow in terms of maturity, how would liquidity plays out for the rest of the week, Chioma?
The market is currently over 300 billion long, coupled with the fact that we have a bond maturity of about 200 billion coming to the system. So we are up about, let's say, 500 billion up. And then we have T-bills maturity, OMO auction maturity coming into the system, which is over 300 billion. That takes us to about 800 billion in the system. What we expect is, after the bond auction, we expect that there's going to be 150 billion out. So we still have over 500 billion in the system. And then we have FX refund coming in. We expect that the central bank will come in and try to manage the liquidity via the OMO auction.
Chioma Udu, thank you very much for giving us what you call the vote of thanks for today's show. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time. And we'll say thank you to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.